What's up, Depo?
Hey, what's going on, Phil?
Not too much. This is the first one of hopefully many. Can you call it a podcast if it's on a video?
Sure.
Okay,
We can call it whatever we want to call it.
that's true.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, this is our first podcast. Our working title is Superficial Intelligence. Take from that what you will, I guess.
Absolutely. So, obviously we're two very enthusiastic technology people that enjoy technology, but also have a real passion for education, and love working with the kids, and know that don't mean to be cliche by using a song of "Children are the future, teach them well, let them lead the way."
You should write that down and put it to music.
Put it to music. So we're going to just talk about a variety of topics. It's going to be very casual in nature. We're hoping in the future that it becomes an opportunity for many of you to send some questions our way, stuff to discuss. And like I said, it'll be specific to curriculum, but also just trends and statistics as we go on with learning and teaching in Portage Township Schools. So first topic, innovation.
Yeah,
Teaching and innovation.
teaching and innovation. Should we tell them like what we do for our district?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, introduce our roles.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I know a lot of you watching this might be from our district, but our goal is to maybe expand the audience. So if that's you, well, my name is Phil Dietrich, and I'm the Innovative Learning Coach for K through 5.
Yeah, and just a backstory for Phil. Phil was a fantastic elementary teacher in our district, and this position opened up, and my job is to help find some really great people that are willing to help with technology in the classroom, and Phil was available, and so Phil came on board because my name is Michael DePasquale. I'm the Director of Innovative Learning, and was a teacher here in Portage Schools for a very long time. Been here since 2000, I know. And so I was a band director, but I was also a music teacher who used a lot of technology in the classroom and got identified as such, and then moved to attendance officer.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I was,
big time.
Yeah, I was the attendance officer.
That's when you know you're on the short list.
And then moved to assistant principal, and became assistant principal at the high school, and really enjoyed that experience. And then an opportunity came up to move into this position, which was originally called the Director of Technology Integration. And then it rolled into innovative, and that's why perfect transition into the word innovation and technology, because I think there's a great misunderstanding of what innovation means and what technology means. And I think the biggest thing is that innovation is a theory, technology is an object.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the confusion is that as soon as you are identified as innovative, that means you're using technology.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden you've turned into like the Matrix, and you're just like a series of ones and zeros just
Correct.
floating down. And one of the things too is when you get identified as innovative, not only is it with technology, but then all of a sudden all the troubleshooting.
Correct.
Like, dude, can you do that? And I'm like, shoot, man, did you restart or?
Right. Yeah. Have you turned it on and off? Have you turned it off and back on? Well, and I think one of the things that most people need to realize is that there are a lot of really innovative teachers in Portage Township Schools. A lot of really innovative teachers, and not all of them use technology. Innovative is a practice. Innovative is the theory of doing something new to achieve the goals you're looking for. And that's a great challenge, to be innovative, to be creative. Another great word to tie into innovation is creativity, and allowing creativity to try something new to achieve that goal. And obviously, our goal is to create successful young adults, and that starts all the way in kindergarten with our goal of that we're going to get them through 13 years of education successfully, so that they can move into the post-secondary world and achieve their goals and complement and help out society in whatever role or capacity that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I like about innovation I think there's also a misconception that, anybody that's in the education community is all about only preparing kids for college. That if it's post-secondary, like that means that it has to be college and everybody. And certainly that's a great route to take and serves a lot of people well for a variety of professions. But, the trades are also very important as well. And one of those things that as I've talked to friends who are in them, machinists and pipe fitters and all that, have talked about kind of, there's sort of a decline in terms of people that are going into that because of this perception, that the trades are. But what I like about the reason that I bring that up is because I think what I like about innovation in education, and like you said, doesn't always mean technology. I feel like it plays well into, regardless of what path you're planning to take, or if you don't know what path you're planning to take. These are theories that are going to serve you well no matter what. I mean, problem solving, absolutely. I mean, think about how much you pay for a service call to have someone come out to your house.
Absolutely.
And do whatever, you know what I mean? Change out the floors or fix the plumbing. It's like, man, I mean, that's problem solving right there in a nutshell. And I mean, I'm thinking, they're doing stuff I can never have thought of. So I mean, if teachers in the classroom are giving them opportunities to solve problems like that with their different skill sets, I think that is really preparing them for real life.
I'll give you a great example, and this is something that I was blessed with the opportunity to teach general music at the middle school, and most students who are taking general music at the middle school are not in general music class because they wanted that class. They signed up for that class. It was one of those related arts classes that was added to their schedule. So knowing that I was going to teach a lot of students about Bach and Mozart and about how to read music, which was not on their radar of something they wanted, I knew it would have to look different to get to the kids and get the kids excited about learning. The bottom line was I had to do taking small risks, risks that were calculated. And some were hits, some were misses, but most of the time I think that the students appreciated what we're doing. For example, teaching students how to read notes. Most of the kids were not musicians. They weren't going to become piano players or musicians, but at least to learn that skill set because it was part of what the standards I had to teach. So one of the things was we made a huge, what's known as a grand staff, which is the music notes on a staff, twister board. And the students played musical twister. And kids were excited about it and learned how to read notes through musical twister. That's innovative. That's a practice that's outside the norm, outside the box, but it achieved a goal that you're looking for. So I think when people kind of confuse innovation and technology, especially teachers, always know that innovation does not mean it has to be attached to a device. The devices are real helpful for being innovative, just because of the new technology that's out there between virtual reality, augmented reality, just the ability to collaborate and share documents without being face-to-face. And I think that's important also for Phil, myself, and the rest of the coaches throughout the district appreciate technology, but at the same time, we believe in a blended learning philosophy where it's not technology all the time for technology's sake, but it's technology when it best fits the role of the best approach for learning.
Yeah, one of the cool things, I got to say, like from going from teaching in the one school, teaching fifth grade, and then getting into this position, it's been very cool to be able to meet all the different teachers. And since I get to work with them in their classes, really just supporting what they're doing. And what's been cool is being able to see all the age levels and of the students, not the teacher. Well, I guess that too.
Well, and that's important also because I hate to say it, not always the youngest teacher is the most technological savvy, and not the oldest teacher is the person that doesn't know it. I think a lot of people think if you got 30 years of experience, you're not going to be willing or not able to use technology, and that's not true. We have many teachers with lots of years of experience that are very willing to jump into the mix and use technology, where a lot of newer teachers, when they come in, they're great, and this is not an insult. This is just the truth of where we're at with technology. Is that are great consumers of technology because most technology available today is consumer-based technology. You're not really digging into the software. You're not really doing any programming. You have an app, you press the app, boom, you're on, and you're doing those things. So for them to do some back setup, because some of this stuff does require some back setup, is not always the most comfortable. Yeah. And that's a great place to be, is to be a teacher, to say, here is my levels, here's where I'm at, and I'm willing. And I'm willing to learn. And usually a lot of times it's learning alongside us, because a lot of times teachers ask us to learn how to do something, and we may know it, and a lot of times we don't know it. And then what we do is we do, I hate to say it, Google searches, and we kind of stay one or two steps ahead of the teacher, and then you guys stay one or two steps ahead of the students.
You use Google? I use Wikipedia.
Yeah,
Is that bad?
Well, Wikipedia is not bad anymore. And actually, that's a funny topic, because Wikipedia, when I first started teaching, Wikipedia was open source, and really bad open source. As in anybody, it was not vetted. So anybody can contribute to it. And I actually did, me being a tech person, I actually put in there to show my middle school general music students how bad Wikipedia was back then. Is I went in there and put that Bach played third base for the Dodgers, and it got in there.
Is that true?
No, he did not. He was.
It's because it sounded familiar.
No. He did not play for the Dodgers, unfortunately.
He'd have been good though.
No, he would have. Yeah, I'm not sure if he would have.
No, he would have sucked. Never mind. That's funny that you said that, the whole thing about Wikipedia, because same thing, we were doing that history project, that album project I did. So one of the things that I would do, it kind of became an annual thing. The first year I did it was because I was trying to think of how do I wanted them to do a research project, because I wanted them to go through the process and learn how to blend digital information and print information, the blended, and but I didn't want it to be boring, because I remembered my research projects, and I would learn about stuff that I couldn't have cared less about, and I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about today. But I was like, okay, so how do I do that? And music was always kind of my thing. Now I'm a drummer, so I probably need to take your general music class to figure out how to read music. But that's not an insult to drummers. There's a lot of drummers who know how to read music, disclaimer. But anyway, so but for me, I just thought, okay, how can I kind of incorporate music? So what I did was I said, well, let's make a history album. So they're gonna research these historical event. And so the first couple of weeks of the project was all about going through the research process. You do the whole thing, and then at the end of it, theme was one of the standards that we had to hit. So I would have them, what's the lesson of history here? So theme is a lesson. What's the lesson of history that we could learn? And of course, they could have come up with. It wasn't so much that right or wrong. It's not for me to say, but just as long as it was based on their research. And then I said, okay, now go out there and find 4 songs. And then so it was funny, because the first couple of years people would try to be finding okay, Mr. Tetrick, I can't find any songs about the Titanic, or I can't find any songs about. Well, my heart will go on. But anyway, so I can't find any songs about whatever.
See, my problem with that movie is that headboard was big enough for both of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but
yeah,
they didn't share it.
That's true.
And he wound up
very selfish.
Yeah, he died at the end.
Well, you get what's coming to you. But anyway, that's karma, man. That's karma. But so then they would pick these 4 songs, and then I downloaded them on iTunes, which, by the way, was the coolest way to actually allow, or to get my wife to allow me to spend $100 on iTunes every year.
Wow.
So that was,
Yeah, but I think you also probably got stuck with a lot of songs that you really didn't want.
Well, that's true. Although a couple of years into it, I started noticing hey, I don't have to buy all of them now, because 15 of my 20 students used Roar last year by Katy Perry, and then 10 of my students the year before that used Fight Song by Rachel Platten. It's they would just repeat and repeat. One year it was Stitches by what's his face, Shawn Mendes, I think, or what?
I'm old.
One of those Disney people. So anyway, but anyway, I'm getting way off track, which is common. But anyway, so then I would burn the CDs for them, and then I would go in and teach them some of the cover art, like some of the graphic design. To date myself, it was Publisher that I started that in. I like Publisher. Shoot, I don't care. I still like it.
It was effective.
Yeah,
it worked. It worked, And then
I still use it when I can.
Hey, you gotta understand. I was the generation where PowerPoint was the big thing, and so I think a lot of us get stuck in that death by PowerPoint, and we go to trainings and death by PowerPoint, and so I think those have their places, and that's why I love Google Slides. Just in regards to it's great for students to make quick snapshot, and it's easy. It's not overly complicated. You're not going to get a ton of GIFs thrown in there because it doesn't automatically have them like some of the other ones do, like PowerPoint. And even at the youngest age, kids can get their hands on the slides pretty young and be able to be successful at it. And I think that's what we want kids to do, is to be able to have hands-on experiences with technology, to incorporate their learning and be successful in what they do, and then have a good understanding of how those tools are used later on in life.
Yeah, I was doing some reading before this so that I sounded like I knew what I was talking about a little bit. And one of the things that I found was, in terms of one of the advantages of using technology, the thing that we talked about at the beginning about how technology does not equal innovation. It does not equal improved student achievement.
Yep.
However you define it. But I also talked about how, hold on, let me regain my train of thought. Sorry, the train kind of derailed a little bit.
That's okay.
The South Shore is taking a detour. Hold on. When we edit this, we got to put like some musical hold or something like that with like some thought bubbles, right? Just like
there you
go.
Go.
Like drums or something.
Talking about the testing and not testing integrity. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Oh, yeah, I remember. See, I knew that would eventually get back onto the highway. All right, so anyway, I'm mixing my metaphors, by the way. So anyway, about how, wait, did I just lose it again? No, students, they improve self-esteem. Like basically when they're doing authentic tests, you talked about the PowerPoints and the slides, doing these skills that, they realize that out in the real world, that these technological skills are valued, that they have worth, some level. And so whether it's coding or, putting together a slides presentation or being able to even just troubleshoot for their classmates, it's been shown to, lead to an increase in cooperative learning. It's been shown to lead to an increase in self-esteem because of all those access points to a lesson. I can sympathize with the non-artistic people because hand drawing was never, well, I shouldn't say isn't my strong suit, but but it was always like, oh my gosh, okay, take out your glue sticks and your crayons and your scissors, and I'm like, I'm lucky if I can cut paper the right way, let alone make this glue stick, work. And like tracing a pattern, like forget it,
This won't surprise you, but I actually, we used to actually in kindergarten used to paint with chocolate pudding. Yeah, I know that sounds, but I was the kid that the chocolate pudding never made its way to the paper.
No, yeah, so we would have been buds. Yeah, so we would have been fighting over pudding, so maybe not. I don't know, but yeah, seriously, that was innovative.
That was very innovative.
Teacher's part.
Very innovative.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's a lot of chocolate pudding.
That is a lot of chocolate pudding. And you said kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
Dude, kindergarten isn't sugar.
Yeah.
Dude, at least they try to make it healthy today. Man,
There's too many allergies now. They couldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so no, I don't know. It's just, because so there's different ways, the different skills. And for me, that's one of the things that I like about technology is like, we always know, we always talk about, philosophically, okay, all these kids have, different skills and abilities and just like adults. And we know that to be true. I think intuitively we realize that's true, but the tough part, I think, is getting from knowing that to then in the day-to-day fast pace of the 180, and then of course all these other things that are thrown at you, like the 15 rounds of testing and like the snow days. We just had a 2-hour delay this morning, and then you had an assembly.
Which, by the way, that means we recorded this on November 12th.
That's right.
Yeah, 2019. So
coming to you not so live.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so if you're watching this in July, then that made no sense to you. But anyway.
Especially because we'll probably need about 3 weeks to edit our first episode. So
that's true. It's probably 2020 by now.
Before it gets out.
FYI, yeah. Or if we're lucky, maybe it's 2021. I don't know. But yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, I forgot what I was just saying.
That's okay.
That happens to me a lot, as you figured out by now.
One of the things I think that I talked to a few teachers about some topics that are of concern in regards to integrating technology in the classroom, and I thought I'd bring one of them just to tie us back to a subject that may be quite applicable to teachers. Teachers are always concerned about the integrity of using technology in regards to cheating, and especially like testing integrity. And it just so happens that it was good timing because I was fortunate enough to attend what's known as the HECC conference, HECC, and it's a tech conference down in Indianapolis. And one of the big discussions was testing integrity. And there was a study that was just shown or was just done that was more focused on higher learning, so college, because colleges and digital learning is huge right now, is testing integrity, the concern of the professors. And that obviously trickles down into what we do, and even all the way down into the elementary schools, is the idea of devices, technology affords or allows for higher levels of inaccuracies on testing, aka cheating. And so the concern is allowing technology to be used. And what the study showed, which was really interesting, they studied a bunch of different schools, was that the tests had really no difference in integrity based upon whether it was digital or paper. It was really the study of the quality of the test, first of all. And then secondly of all was the presence and the true presence of the facilitator, because I don't want to always say it's teachers, because sometimes, it might be an aide who in the elementary who might be just overseeing some students taking some sort of assessment, obviously not something high stakes because that has to be done by a licensed teacher, but that the presence of the teacher, the presence of the facilitator really determines the integrity of the test. And I think it's real easy sometimes for the students, as we know, they get buried in the technology. You'll lose them in the technology. And I think that sometimes we as educators, and I'm even guilty of myself in a meeting where I open up my device and I can get lost in other things, checking emails, Facebook, I hate to even say, that the presence, the proximity, as we like to use the term as educators, proximity of the teacher makes a huge difference. And the nice thing is through testing tools like our LMS, Schoology, which is a very good LMS, you can create pretty robust testing with test banks, which allows you to kind of randomize questions, or you can even change the order of the questions given. So Johnny sitting next to Susie don't see the same question at the same time, which is great. And then also, if you take that and roll into it, Apple Classroom, which allows you to lock out students from other apps or from a browser, internet browser, that makes a huge difference also. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because I know that's a legitimate fear. I mean, I can totally understand why a teacher would be concerned about a well-vetted test that's really important on assessing not only just a grade, but assessing where a student is honestly at, so they can prepare them for the next step. If that testing integrity is broken, that could be really detrimental.
For real, yeah. I mean, but one of the cool things when you mentioned Schoology, one of the things that I dig about it, and just in the teachers that I've worked with so far, to show it to, what I love about it is just how it can mimic the testing. And it's not all about testing, but it's nice to be able to at least prepare them in the same format, so they're not punished for format. But I like the multiple right answers and the drag and drop and all these things. I guess,
as they like to call them, the tech enhanced questions.
Yeah, tech enhanced. And for me, it's almost like test taking motor skills. It's like learning to walk on a computer style. And it's like being able to learn how to do that, so that when it's time to actually focus on the material, then they can do it. But no, but what I was going to say, the testing integrity, I was just reading something about the augmented reality and how there's software, and I'm sure it's like super expensive, but that's all right. You're good for it. And but it's where they would have cameras kind of around the classroom. Now, of course, that there's all kinds of red tape, I'm sure, that creeps up about that. But where it adapts, like in terms of just being an extra set of eyes in the room, proctoring. Just to make sure, that the testing integrity is there, in addition to, not as a substitute for the teacher in the room.
Well, and one of the things that I think that you brought up is interesting is the fact that it's another, I won't say burden, but a challenge for teachers, because we are preparing them to take a high stakes test. And that's just something we do. And being able to properly prepare them to take it in the format that's going to be placed in front of them is one of our duties and our jobs. And I think that it's really important for us to give them as many opportunities to be exposed to that environment, what that's going to look like. If the students are going to be taking tests on an iPad, then they really should experience what a test feels like on an iPad. If they're doing it on Chromebooks, what it feels like to do it on a Chromebook. If there's Tech Enhanced, they get that experience of Tech Enhanced, that the day of the test or the day of even the readiness test, when we're taking just to see if our technology works. And that's really what the readiness tests are for, is just to test the technology. It's not really to, see if the kids are ready for the test. Before we even do the readiness, the kids should be exposed, students should be exposed to as many opportunities to see what Tech Enhanced looks like. And that's why any of those iLearn testing, or even when we're doing previous renditions of state testing, those practice tests are always available. And so I think it's, not just important to do it on the practice test date or the readiness test date, to even just throw those things in front of them when there's time to look at it again and get kids, experiencing that again as many times as you can, without jeopardizing the integrity of the instruction in the classroom. Obviously, you don't want to, waste too much time, but you still want to make time for the kids to be, have that experience, so that you can't make the technology or the lack of them experiencing the technology the excuse for why they didn't achieve, if that was a concern. So.
Yeah, and I think even from a student perspective, I can't speak for them, but I would imagine that you show up on test day and you see a test format that you've never experienced before. Number one, it's going to add to your testing anxiety, which
absolutely.
A lot of people already have plenty of to begin with. I remember my first year before all of the testing was online, but I remember the first day of the first time I had to administer I-STEP. And there were a couple of students, not in my grade level, but they were walking down the hall behind me in the morning, and one was just saying to the other in conversation, about how nervous she was about I-STEP, and I just thought, man, that's so sad, but real. And so I think it increases that anxiety, and then I also think kind of one of the other indirect effects of it is I feel like that teacher let me down. You know what I mean? They may have taught me incredible stuff all year. We may have had really cool lessons, but man, this was coming down the pike, and I just feel like I was kind of hung out there to dry. There was a comment that I heard. I was in a professional development group a few years back, and one of the people that came in to speak was the ROTC director, or the junior ROTC director, and came in and said that in the Marines, one of the things that they said, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it was something to the effect of not deploying your troops beyond their capabilities.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, as a teacher, I know that was said in the military sense, but I was thinking, yeah, there's something pretty profound about
There's something real true about that, because I actually, one of my hobbies is I actually race motorcycles, and I've been doing it for many, many years, and doing road course racing. So not dirt bike racing, but road course racing. And I've actually taught a couple small schools, racing schools, and we always talk in high stress situations. So military, racing, those type of things. You never want to go beyond the capacity of 90%. You never want to bring a person beyond 90%, because your brain naturally has a switch, a mechanism, a fail-safe, that when you get beyond that 90% stress, you literally go to your ritualistic, your as they say, medulla oblongata, as they said in the
Adam
Sandler Waterboy movie.
There's something wrong with his medulla oblongata.
Yeah. So.
Nice. It's not part of the brain I know now.
So 90%. So you defer to those fight or flight risks that you do when you are in that panic. And so by not preparing students to feel comfortable walking into a test or feeling comfortable to, perform at high stress situations is a disservice to them, just in regards to making them feel as comfortable as you can. And there's still students that you're never going to achieve that goal. Unfortunately, it's just part of their nature where they're gonna be 100% prepared curriculum wise and still walk in and be very, very stressed, because they're usually your very, very high achievers, the students that just don't want to disappoint. Yeah. And so that creates a challenge for them, and it's just tough.
I know those you talk about the high achievers putting the stress on themselves. My oldest 8th grader this year, and I definitely put her in that category, and she came home after the first quarter with her report card this year, and at her school they still had like the conduct grades, the effort grades, and everything. When I was a student, I was like, okay, that'd be nice if I do okay on those, but like, just what's my academic grade, and like, let's just live to fight another day. And she comes home and she's got straight A's in all of the subjects. And then within an hour of being home, she had it highlighted in different color highlighters. I was like, what's that? She said, well, I've got it color coded. Like, here are the things that I'm doing okay on. Here are the things that I need to improve on. And she's like highlighting, if she got a 3 out of a scale of 4 on like effort, yeah. She's like highlighting that as this is a growth area. I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? So yeah, the challenge is like talking her down, like saying, hey, listen, you're doing wonderful. It's high expectations are good, but you don't want to give yourself an ulcer over it.
Yeah, and it's I think that we as teachers feel that with our students, and so we put a lot of that burden on us in regards to making sure our students are as successful as possible, because that's what we do. And so I think that with high stakes tests and everything else, it's a challenge to not be stressed. And I think that if we can give students the opportunity to try to come back to a conversation a little bit about technology, if we can give them opportunities to have moments where they can share their thoughts and their learning in a way that's, first of all, innovative, but also in a way that also makes life a little more convenient for them. So sometimes the technology is just convenient for our students. I'll give you a great example. Our music department does a phenomenal job with technology throughout the district. There's high stress performance anxiety of having to do a playing test. So for those students to play a piece of clarinet music in front of the director one-on-one, there's a lot of high stress to that. So using the technology we have and the iPads that we had, instead of creating that high stress environment, plus that teacher has to take 60 students, because sometimes those bands are 60, 70 kids, take those 60 students and hear them one at a time, and using class time to hear those kids one at a time. What they're able now to do is say, play your playing test, record it, and drop it in the Schoology and turn it in as an assignment. And now the student can do it, first of all, they can take several takes, so they can pick their best take, which I think, remember, we're teaching the mastery. And I think that's really important to remember. We're teaching mastery. We want to teach students to be successful and to achieve to mastery. And sometimes I know there are opportunities where we have to have them, either they did it or they didn't, and we move on. But a lot of things we want them to achieve mastery. So allowing them to have several takes. So if they didn't like take 1 or take 2, they can record the 3rd time. And then the other thing is it allows them to do it in the comfort of their own room, somewhere else. And then also the teacher doesn't have to consume all that class time not doing instruction. They can do the assessment part, which was very time consuming, because I remember as a band director, it was very time consuming to hear if every kid had a 90-second and you have 70 students, that's several class hours that you're burning to hear all those students. Now you can do that via recording. And I used to do it with tape recorders. And that was,
wow.
Yeah, it was good old fashioned tape recorders. And then it went digital with the digital recorders, and that was kind of cool. But now those teachers can grade on their time in regards to they don't have to do it right there and then. They can, when they have time, they can sit and listen to those recordings, grade them. And the cool thing is provide really constructive feedback back to the student through Schoology, through adding some notes. But the other thing is the teacher can also listen to that playing test again if they need to, because there is that whole chair testing thing they do where somebody's first chair and somebody's last chair. And when I used to listen to it once, I would have one shot to decide who was first chair and who was last chair. With a recording, you now have, if they're real close, you can listen to those two students, a couple times and decide, okay, yeah, this one earned it because of these certain qualities in their playing. So that's where technology really does come into play and can be real helpful to teachers. And that's just an example with just a music teacher. I mean, the math teacher to have multiple opportunities to be successful to mastery in a low stress environment, instead of trying to do it right in classroom at that time, be able to do that at home. That's the same idea, same concept. So
one of the things that I would do, to try to, again, use technology either to make something easier or just to give them a different way to demonstrate. One of the things, a few years into teaching, I realized that I wasn't really focusing on teaching them to annotate, and so what was happening is that there's a lot of rereading an entire whatever it is that you're reading, whether it was 3 paragraphs, 3 pages, didn't matter. And there's that fake reading syndrome. If you get through the end of it and you're like, what did I just read? Which happens to me, But that's why it's you just have that pencil or pen handy or the highlighter handy. And so just kind of went through and got them used to that. Well, the cool thing, the way it relates to technology, especially with using Google Suite, as we do, is being able to go into docs and showing them how to comment on a doc, and being able to collaborate in real time and be able to do that to where there's, in a little way, a little bit of social cover. You can demonstrate that understanding. But even as somebody who a lot of times in school thought I knew the answer, or maybe I did, or maybe I didn't, but doing this was like my heart would just start to race. And I became a teacher, you know what I mean? But it's, so, you get the students where, we say, again, we got all types of students, personalities, gifts, abilities, and everything like that. Sometimes it's, the traditional classroom isn't necessarily set up to highlight all of that. Mm-hmm. But I think that, that's where the effective use of technology can absolutely highlight that, where they can just wow you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that Anna was really taking this in and really, in many ways is more insightful than maybe her peers. I never would have figured that out if it was just looking at the kids that are raising their hands.
For sure. And I remember being an early adopter of technology and showing other teachers when we had iPads and they were cart-based. But one of the things that right away is the great thing about technology is it's a great documenter. So you can document students' progress, or sometimes I hate to say lack of progress, which is unfortunate. But why did my student get this grade is a very common question by parents. And unless it's on paper and pencil in the olden days, you didn't have that documentation. You did it anecdotally in some notes.
Yeah.
Now you can do it via reading a passage. So when a student's struggling with reading, you can record that passage and have that documentation to show mom and dad if here's where your child's struggling, and be able to play that back to them and give them that opportunity to hear it themselves and from their voice, and then also the teacher's there to provide feedback. So I think one of the things that technology does afford us is that ability to document a lot of things, easily create portfolios of learning, which I think is huge. Especially now, you're talking about, we have students who are living in a society of LinkedIn and all those things, where essentially the resume is no longer 2 sheets of paper. Mm-hmm. The resume is a portfolio, and I'm talking an online portfolio. So to train students to create that online portfolio at a young age, where they can create a folder in Google, pick their work with the teacher's, obviously influence, and put that in a portfolio. It would be great if I was a fourth grade teacher, and Phil, you were still a fifth grade teacher. That when you got my students, I had work examples of them digitally that you could say, what did their math work look like? What did their writing samples look like? We could create those opportunities in a portfolio profile that sits digitally, so you're not walking around with the binder. And I know the binders were and still a thing. I think they're still a thing in a lot of our.
They're still a thing.
And so to do it digitally would be awesome. And
Yeah.
remember, the great thing about iPads is in the new iOS version of Notes, it essentially has a scan feature where it's a picture that automatically will convert it to a PDF.
Yeah.
And wow, so the kid can do its work, take a picture of it, and bam, it's there, documented, and you can throw it into a Google Drive where we have unlimited storage.
Yeah. I saw an app, and gosh, I can't remember the name of it. You may even know it when I describe it. I just remember being able to take a scanned document, drop it in, like scan it in, and then actually be able to edit it, like it convert it to text and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was,
there's a lot out there.
yeah, but I can't remember what it was called. I just thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's just the different things that can be done. What's great too is, when you're talking about that portfolio, the students with them all having their Google Drive, and even if it's not Google Drive that they end up having, at some point, one of the skills that they will have to have is to be able to organize themselves digitally. I couldn't even keep my room clean as a kid. Well,
Yeah.
or as an adult. But so sorry, honey. But anyway, so but like online, even more important. It's so easy to just click save or whatever, and you're like,
Correct.
is that in my downloads or is that in my documents or and you're spending all this time. So it's like the computer, which is sort of intended to simplify and save time, ends up being a time extender. So it's like there's a skill with that. But so I think that with education, at least my philosophy of it, it's just teaching them to be teachable. Especially with how quickly technology changes. You
Correct.
can't take a computer off the shelf without it being. It's like what they used to say about driving a car off the lot. You know what I mean?
You've already lost 30% of it. So it's depreciated 30% before you even really got out of the parking lot.
You're like, Steve Jobs is dead, and he still has the next 5 versions of the Mac ready to go.
Well, and one of the things that I'll tell you is a great example of that is when I first started really rolling technology out as a teacher, but also as a person who helped others with technology, was we had both Microsoft heavy and Google. And I think a lot of people still use Microsoft. I still use Microsoft for many things. I'm a big fan of G Suite for 90% of what I do. But there's times where Excel is Excel, and Excel just is a more powerful tool. It's got a lot more capabilities of the processing sometimes of some of the data I'm putting in. But I remember reminding teachers all the time, or anybody using, if you use both, remember Microsoft doesn't save itself. Because I don't know how many times I would get very sad teachers or even secretaries who got so used to Google would go back and do something in Microsoft and walk away from their computer or power down their computer without saving it, and then it didn't save. And I know that's been kind of corrected if you're using 365, which is one of the newer versions of Microsoft, but that was huge. That there was a lot of weeping and gnashing of the teeth because people would accidentally not save their Microsoft documents because they were so used to G Suite just automatically, essentially keystroke saving. It's very rarely I've had a computer completely crash, and one of my own, not one of the schools, I'm proud to say. And I was in the middle of a Google document where I literally lost like 2 words because it's checking in that often and saving that often.
Those were 2 really good words.
They're 2 really good words.
You let me down.
Yeah. So and so that's really important as we transition more and more to technology, is the fact that people need to realize what we know is our norm, and it's just like you're saying, the car thing and everything else. Yeah. What we know is our norm will not be the norm even for our current students we're teaching, but the next generation is going to see things totally different than us. So we will always be trying to stay a step ahead while really being a little bit behind.
Yeah.
But at least we're trying to be in the game. And I think that's really important. As educators, we need to try to be in the game, try to know how we can use that technology appropriately to support our kids' learning. But as you said earlier, not make it not a burden either. The technology should not be a burden. And when it becomes a burden, sometimes paper and pencil is the way to do it. Sometimes it's, as I tell people, I learned my ABCs by rote. I learned my multiplication tables by rote. Sometimes by rote, sometimes by those techniques. They're still very effective techniques. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I mean, even something like cursive, which I know is not necessarily completely germane to this conversation, but it's like, another one of those.
That's
things.
one of those. Don't get my wife started on that. She is one of those where she is so offended that cursive is not a mandatory thing to learn anymore. And
I don't know. I still always wanted to go through that, with students, just because I'm like, man, how are they going to sign their name, signature?
Yeah, correct.
I'm going to make my mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or reading historical documents. I'm like, man, there are just some skills where, I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there are ways to make the wheel more efficient. But I mean, when you talked about the SAMR model of using technology, and I mean, so sometimes, that substitution or that augmentation does make it a little easier. It self-grades or it does something else, so you can spend more time planning. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the paper and pencil is where it's at.
Yeah, SAMR model, for any of you that hasn't heard of the SAMR model, I've talked about it several times. And we always got to come back talking about this stuff. So SAMR model is essentially like Bloom's taxonomy for learning, but for technology it's levels. So S is the lowest level. It's considered substitution. You're using technology to directly replace pen and pencil. And please note that if you're at a substitute level, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Sometimes substitution's a good thing. Sometimes it's the effective way to accomplish the task.
Kind of like knowledge and comprehension level of Bloom's. It's time and place.
Correct.
It's almost
the drill and kill. The drill and kill.
Yeah.
And drill and kill is effective at times. So and then the next level is augmentation. And that's where you're moving up the technology where it's enhancing what would normally be pen and pencil. And then you get what they consider lower level DOK. So it'd be S and A would be your like DOK level 1, start to approach 2. And then you get to the higher levels of the DOK of the SAMR model. And that would be the M, which is modification, which that means where you start to get to a point where the technology is not replaceable with pen and pencil. So it's truly modifying the learning. It's changing the learning, the technology, and then the last one is the R, which is
redefinition.
Yeah, and then redefinition is where there's just no way you could do that. So augmented reality, virtual reality would be just where it's at a level of where you just could not re-simulate that in any other way.
I mean, I was looking at something earlier today where they've got these smart puzzles. You put a puzzle together, and maybe it's a dinosaur, and as soon as you get that final piece in there, all of a sudden that dinosaur is like in a hologram. Like, we need you, Obi-Wan Kenobi here. Only kind of like the hologram right there in front of you.
So I bought 3 T-shirts, and I'm going to debut them here sometime in the schools in the very near future. I just got them that are.
Why am I nervous?
No, and they look like skeletons that are QR codes. Yeah, so get ready for this, and it's an app, and so you wear the T-shirt, and then you take an iPad and show it at the T-shirt, and it turns a person's body into a skeleton where you can actually see the bones, and it's almost proportional to the person's body. But then you can actually go into the respiratory system, the circulatory system as you're shining it on the person. So you get the person's head and everything, but then it breaks down, and it's not really their body. It's not like it's an X-ray, but it actually layers that on top of them in AR. The cool thing is you can use your camera from the iPad to first, before they start, take their pulse. So you stick your finger on the camera, and it shines a light, and it actually can pick up the blood vessels in your finger through the camera and measure a pulse. So as you're looking through it and seeing the circulatory system, it actually will show you the circulatory system working at that person's heart rate.
Wow.
I know, mind blown. And I was strategic. I bought a youth small, obviously for me. No, I'm kidding.
Naturally.
Youth small, and then I bought a little larger and then a little larger, so 3 shirts, so we can kind of cover our kids mostly through elementary, through high school. So Phil, I'll be hitting you up and probably giving you one or a couple of them to go out to the elementaries and debut to people to see. And
I'm all good with the fashion show. So I'm going to be getting a keeper on this. I'm going to be getting my little partying gift that I can go around.
No,
No?
it's on loan.
Christmas.
It's on loan.
Oh man!
And the reason
I
why
was
it's on
gonna
loan
say-
is because I did spend my own money for these, and they were not cheap T-shirts. I think I paid less for a T-shirt at my last rock concert than I did for this T-shirt. Yeah, that just puts in perspective how expensive they were. And my wife has not gotten the Visa bill yet, so so she'll be asking about that purchase of.
Just going to be like, did they have a box to return these for a full refund?
Yes.
What are these like? Are they full cotton or are they different material?
No, it's the same. They're just regular T-shirts that are printed with these cool QR codes, and
all right.
And don't trust me already. I'm bad already. But how can I replicate these at a lot cheaper? But then obviously I want to respect the fact that those are copyrighted items. And I think one of our next topics, our next podcasts, video cast, whatever you want to call them, I think we need to talk about probably copyright and common threads of that in regards to using other people's images off of Google and how you do that safely. The whole debate, the Netflix, Hulu, can I use that stuff in my classroom?
Mm-hmm.
Is it allowed? I think it would be a great, that's a 30-minute conversation within itself, because it's all great materials out there and it's readily available. It doesn't mean it's always legal or right, because those people are artists, those people are creating things, and also there's legalities to it. And so we have to all be very mindful of that, and that I think that'd be a great podcast discussion for the future.
I mean, it's like Napster, it's like if you can access it at any time without having to give the credit and
I remember smashing my hard drive in college. I'll just say I was of the Napster era, and I remember when the lawsuits started to happen, and that they were going to find you through the internet. I remember everybody yanking their hard drives out of their computers and smashing them to smithereens to make sure that they didn't get caught. Because they were starting, those fines were like $10,000, and they were charging like $1 per song. And back then we were putting 12, 14, 15,000 songs on our hard drives.
So Spice Girls albums just weren't worth it.
No, there wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, for me it was LimeWire.
Yes.
So LimeWire came out, and they're like, they're getting.
So it puts a little. We already defined a little bit of an age gap.
Here we go.
Dietrich, because
Generation Napster.
Generation LimeWire. So
but I got so many viruses and other kind of crap that LimeWire just. There you go.
So I think we're going to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
But I think that as we get in, we're going to get more detailed, specific into stuff that's directly affecting learning. So talking about Schoology, talking about the technology we specifically have at Portage Township Schools. But I think this was a great starter just to get people in the know of what these conversations are going to look like.
Totally. Random question to wrap it up.
Okay.
As I move the microphone.
Slide the mic and
hopefully you can still hear us. It was a paperweight until just a second ago. All right. Pick a number from 1 to 99.
Wow.
You don't get a pass, by the way. You got to answer whatever it is.
I'm going to pick my age, 44.
44. Okay, now we know how old you are.
Yep.
Ooh, this is a deep one. What is the most difficult challenge thus far in your life?
And you're gonna have to answer that question too, then, because that's. I think just always trying to be a great parent. I think and I hate to say, I'm 14 years on one and 10 years on the other already, and still don't know what the outcome is in regards to whether I've done a good job.
Yeah.
And I bet you if I talk to my parents who are we just celebrated their 70th birthday, I bet you they're still working on me. So I think being a great parent, and I think that ties back into the balance of being a great parent and balancing work and family, and making sure that you do your best at both without sacrificing either. And I think that we all struggle with that as in any capacity, but especially as educators, where we have 150 students who are our kids. I always looked at my students as my kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably one of the greatest challenges is that raising kids and making sure you're doing a good job and being successful at it. Mm-hmm. And that will be, I'll come back in 20 years and tell you whether it was good or not. So.
Yeah, you're like, I thought I had it.
Yes.
And it's like, thought I had it.
So question 44 for you.
Question 44 for me. Well, in the spirit of a school related, he stole my answer. No, but being a parent definitely biggest challenge. I would say, another challenge is, just so that I do something slightly original for this question, I would say probably the financial literacy, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I dug myself a little hole in college. I was
buying a lot of drum sets.
Yeah. No, that would have been, at least I would have had something to show for it. It was like buy a lot of Applebee's, you know?
There you go.
And hey, guess what? I'm buying, guys. That was stupid. But yeah, I was like half awake. It was a Saturday morning, and some Visa person called me, and I said, "Oh, free money. That sounds pretty good." And so then, and it felt pretty good too for a while.
Yeah.
But I have myself to blame. Pretty much out of it now. But I mean, it was a tough lesson to learn. It was a tough one to bounce back from.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would say that was probably the biggest challenge. Negative, like the parenting one, it's a challenge, but as I'm sure you'll agree, it's incredibly rewarding.
Yep.
And while Applebee's makes wonderful food, and speaking of, if you're watching and you have like any pull with corporate and
want to get us gift cards and
Applebee's, but. Yeah, that was basically my own stupidity. Can't fix stupid, isn't that what they say?
Well, and they I think that a great life lesson is helping our students, our kids, not our own children, but even our kids here, helping them try to make wise decisions towards the future and making sure that they don't fall into some of the same pitfalls that we ran into as teachers in regards to when we're their teachers, talk about our own life experiences, so that they know that we've all been there. We've done those things. And we want to grow with our students and be able to support them and make sure that they know that that we're not only just their teachers, but that we're their mentors and that we're people that care about them and want them to succeed. So great lesson, and so don't go get those credit cards in college.
Absolutely. It's funny that whole segment about we want them to like kind of learn from our mistakes, which my parents said that too, but it reminded me. There's a Sam Kinison, it was Sam Kinison about. He was talking about how they were having those commercials like rock against drugs, and he's like, and then you always see some like has-been rock star, doing these PSAs, and I was like, hello man, like. Don't do drugs, because if you do, you'll end up having to do a commercial like this one.
Yeah.
It's like, hey kids, don't get a credit card, because otherwise
you'll be like Mr. Dietrich.
Do not be like Mr. Dietrich.
So
don't let it happen to you.
So we'll start to bring this out to you guys on a regular basis, and as we do that, if you have questions or things, and we can get real specific about. And maybe even screencast some things for you in regards to some technological solutions or strategies. I think we'll be more than willing, and it doesn't have to be in a formal podcast either. Sometimes we'll just throw something together and send it your way specifically to you, teacher, or just share out to the masses. So
yeah, and if there's ever any stunts you want to see Depo do, just send them our way. I mean, maybe we'll put like an email address at the bottom of the screen or whatever, and they can, And he doesn't get a pass on those either, so
yeah, that would be not good for anybody. So
0 days since a work time accident.
So thank you for joining
Thank
us, and we'll definitely get back soon.
All right, adios.